Hey, welcome everyone. Um, yeah, I just want to start this update by saying I still haven't gotten back to anyone in messages, but I just there's absolutely nobody who has upset me. There's nobody who has said the wrong thing, and that's why I didn't get back to them. So I just want to make sure that's said uh, first. I still have not felt up to answering messages, and I know it's been quite a while since I've been in contact with some people. And I'm aware that there were some people who had, I looked through a couple messages. I couldn't get myself around to answering anything. But anyway, just, I'm not upset with anybody. Nothing's changed between me and anyone. Nobody in particular is being ignored. Yeah, I'm still just worn the fuck out. And hey, two more V's. How you doing? This. There's a part of me that like does not part. Yeah, it just does not make sense to a part of me that there would be any need for me to give an update. Like, who cares how the fuck things have been going? But on the other hand, I'm aware there are people. Hey, Grizz. Okay, don't forget you build it as a last shitty one. Okay, so well, two more V's has some positivity. He's doing well. So it's good to see you. How are you? Okay, so yeah, I am doing less shitty. Um, it's been a while now since I've had any of the other symptoms of COVID's other than the exhaustion and maybe some headaches. The exhaustion has really stuck around. Hey Adela, lots of love to you too. So yeah, I'm at the point where I'm not sick anymore. I just have the after effects of being exhausted. This entire thing, one thing I noticed, there has never been a moment of relief of feeling better. Like, the idea of boiling a frog, like you turn up the heat too quickly, the frog jumps out. If you turn up the heat gradually enough, the frog doesn't notice. I have noticed with every stage of having corona, it has been like that for me. Like every single, because it went in stages and there were different symptoms at different points. It's every single thing improved so gradually that there was never that sense of relief of, I feel better. And with a lot of things, it would only be like thinking back to a week before or a couple days before that I could think, okay, no, the sore throat's better now, or the swelling in my chest is, yeah, no, it's definitely better than a couple days before. But if I'm comparing it to just the more previous memory, all the improvement has been so gradual. And it's been the same thing with the exhaustion, except for one thing. Hey, Tarot for Self Knowledge says, hey, Mark, nice to see you. I'm closer to you now, living in Etobicoke. Yeah, and so how's shit going there? You still at that same job? How's that going? And yeah, you and I aren't far apart at all. When I lived in Toronto, I used to do a lot of working furniture delivery and moving. I used to drive all around Etobicoke. All right, what was I saying? Okay, so everything, yeah. all improvements have been so fucking gradual. Oh, right. So like on Tuesday, I had to, yeah, I'm not going to say what, but I had to deal with something really fucking stressful on Tuesday. And it didn't feel like the right time to me, with me being so fucking still exhausted. And like when I say exhaustion, even at the point when I was past symptoms, the exhaustion at its worst would be like I could sleep for 10 to 12 hours at night, get up, do a morning routine and whatnot, drink a little bit of coffee, and like within an hour of being out of bed, just needing to lie down on the couch and fall asleep for an hour or two. And then I could like get up, go outside to hang out with the wildlife for an hour or two. That would feel like so much work just to get up and move outside. Or sometimes I'd end up with the inertia problem. I'd move outside thinking, oh, I'll go outside for an hour. I'm out there sitting on the ground with the rodents and the birds, and then I'd feel tired and like I need to go in and lie down, but just not enough energy to get up and move in. So sometimes I'd sit outside for another hour or two just trying to get the energy to come inside. It's like I could do that and then just come in, fall asleep again for 2 hours, wake up, eat a meal, fall asleep again, wake up, watch TV for 2 hours, and then go to bed. It was like I could do that day after day and constantly feel exhausted. And so coming up on Tuesday, it was still like I think it was beginning to do that gradual. Maybe I was slightly less tired. But then Tuesday, I had something stressful to deal with that has serious consequences, couldn't be put off. Like how well it went has important consequences. And so I did not sleep well the night before. I think it went well. But it was like I had to set my alarm to get up at like 11. I'd been waking up just naturally between 12:30 and 2 recently. Like it's sort of in that range. So to be up and ready to deal with something, I had to set an alarm, which I fucking just I try to never set alarms. I try to wake up naturally. It's very rare. But anyway, day after, I woke up around the same time, quarter after 11, and could not get back to sleep. Since then, I don't like, yeah, no, it's really gradual, but the fatigue's got to be improving. But I think like the mania energy, fuck, how do I put this? If I wasn't looking like more closely, I might feel like I have become significantly less fatigued since Tuesday, or like all of a sudden on that day. But I think what it is a stress reaction mania. Like, fuck, you know, when you're really, really fucking tired, like for whatever reason, you've been up for a long time, especially if you've had one of those jobs that's like 16-hour days for a while. Sometimes if you're really fucking tired and you're pushing yourself and you're just exhausted and late in the day, you pound a couple coffees to get through the last hour or two. You can be extremely fucking tired and unable to sleep at the same time. It's like, yeah, the best analogy for anyone who has no concept of what mania is like is it's like being really caffeinated, like in this situation. It's the difference between how sometimes, you're kind of tired, in the morning type tired. A bit of caffeine actually wakes you up. But if you're fucking exhausted and you worked a 16 or 18-hour day, but you still have caffeine in your system, it's not that you're less tired, you're fucking exhausted. But the caffeine won't let you go to sleep. That's how I felt since Tuesday. So I'm exhausted all day. But I can't sleep as much. I can take like maybe one 1-hour nap during the day now this past week. But other than that, I'm still, and it doesn't, well, like marginally less tired, but largely the effect is of pressing on the gas and brakes at the same time. I've been wondering before that how like COVID fatigue would react to, like would interact with my bipolar. Because right before I got sick, was it March 22nd when it hit me? I'd been noticing like my depression was beginning to lift gradually. I was actually starting to look forward to April, thinking my depression usually lifts throughout April, and the wildlife's going to come back. It's going to be warmer outside. I can let the fire go out. I was, beginning to sort of be hopeful that April would be a good month, and then COVID hit. But anyway, once I was getting over it, but realizing the fatigue wasn't going away, that made me really wonder how it would interact. If, because apparently some people end up with the fatigue or physical exhaustion lasting for months. So I was thinking, if this is something where it's 3-4 months, like if I have this all summer, what the fuck will that do? Will it leave me feeling depressed and tired all summer? Will it just dampen the mania where I still sort of go into my manic cycle, but my energy's really low, like at a low level hypomania? If the fatigue held me in a depressed state, what would that do? Would it mean that I just have a shorter and lower manic period in the summer? Or might I stay depressed all summer and then push back the manic phase and have it come up in the fall? But since the stress of Tuesday, unless I'm mistaken, I think like the manic energy is kicking in and it's just fighting the exhaustion. But it's just the energy, it's just mania in the pure energy form. There's no positive emotion, is what I'm saying. It's just the energy, the adrenaline. I'm still not, although I'm spending a significant amount of time, like I can meditate and get myself into a place that's, like I'm spending a significant amount of time, how do I put it, with no resistance to suffering. And I've spent a significant amount of time like in the now, feeling peaceful and calm. But that positive emotion, like happiness or joy or any of that stuff that I see as taking, like, it requires energy, like there's an energy to happiness. There's absolutely no happiness at all. I can reach states of calm and peace. They're pleasant, but they're not on the energetic input level. So the one thing that's been, even the last half of being sick, like when it was really bad. Like there were 3 weeks that were solidly very, very bad. Towards the end of that, I managed to be non-resistant to it and to be suffering significantly and to not be upset. Fuck, I don't know how to put it. In a more zen place with it. Fuck, my brain is so tired. Like suddenly everything I said has just gone out of my head. I know I did the whole sorry I'm not answering messages and like saying really, really clearly I'm not upset with anybody. Nothing's any different between me and anybody at all. I'm just not feeling up to writing messages. Welcome, Undertone Man, Bravery, Zen Muppet. So Undertone Man says, it makes me happy to know you're over your illness. Take some more rest, man, and thank you for taking the time to make this update. Much love, brother. Much love back to you. Tamor V says, is there another event you're anticipating following this? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you clarify that? And sorry, that may be perfectly obvious, but the amount of talking I did up till now, my brain did a bit of a reset thing. I don't remember what I was saying, and fuck. And all this time I've been cut off, not answering messages. I've done a lot of, I suppose, sort of shadow work and digging deep. So in relation to answering messages, I've never liked writing messages, like ever. That was why when I started doing the channel with Ryan, there was no way to reach me directly. Ryan was the one who checked the channel email and everything. I enjoy reading messages from people, like, but opening up, making myself available to answer messages, like came in stages for those of you who've been around since the beginning. And it's like, it's never changed the fact that I don't like writing messages. I don't like writing in general at the moment. It's fuck, my brain's getting all weird. So I'll just say it the weird way. Speaking, it's all fire and smoke that you're working with. Writing a message is all so crystalline, carving something into rock. I'm much more comfortable the fluid fire and smoke you can work with talking. And so, and it came from examining where I have built up fucking stresses and traumas and all that shit inside from over the past 2 years. You know, when I really looked back, it's in the whole writing and sending messages, it's always been an effort for me to write messages. I just pushed myself through that for so long. But that not even a dislike, that difficulty of writing messages never went away. And so that's why I'm taking such a long break from responding to people. It's not that I don't really appreciate people writing to me. It's not like that I don't feel you deserve responses or whatnot. It's just writing messages takes a lot more out of me in ways that whatever bullshit I said before, there's more to it. I just don't know how to describe it. Oh, okay, two more visas. I was wondering if the event on Tuesday has the matter settled or if there's something coming still. Yeah, no, there's going to be more following up. I'll just tell you about it sometime. I'm sure, yeah, a few people here, I'm sure, would know generally what that's about, but I don't want to talk about any of that publicly because it's just not fair to other people in my life. But next time we talk, I'll fill you in on how that's progressed so far. Well, I will say one thing about Tuesday. I observed in myself the night before and the day of, before something, I thought to myself, fuck, this is a difficult situation to enter in and to hold yourself to telling the truth. I was like, there's a lot of ways this could go where small lies will be so tempting. And being aware of that, I paid attention to it and made the decision beforehand. Like, nope, no matter how much, there could be a moment where just my stomach will drop. And because I really don't struggle with lying usually at all anymore. But I recognize that this situation, for various reasons, could result in a desire to lie. It was a very difficult, yeah, I had a difficult moment of meditation ahead of time to really commit to that, to say, no, no matter what, I'm telling the fucking truth. And I told the truth the whole way through. Not even fucking that level of leaving something out that you know is a part of, because you can play with truth sometimes where you just leave something out, even though you know it's relevant. And as long as the person doesn't specifically ask that, you can technically say, I haven't lied, you didn't ask specifically. But I went through the whole thing, and the actual event, we'll just say, it wasn't difficult during the event. Once I'd committed to it, I just, yeah, I stuck to it completely. And it's like, yeah, it was hard ahead of time to stick to the commitment, to telling the truth no matter what. But once it got going, it was easy, like throughout the discussion. Okay. Just one dude says, dude, what's the beeping? It must be driving you crazy. Not good for the brain. I don't hear any of that. I have a shitty little old laptop that is malfunctioning more and more. I don't hear anything. I can hear the birds outside. I can hear the slight hum of the fan in the laptop. And that's it. So, yeah, those beeps and whistles and whatever you guys hear is not on my end. And sorry about that. I am in no way equipped to be a YouTuber. I'm poor and have shitty equipment and barely know how to use a computer. Zen Muppet says, what do you like to read about? I like science fiction. I really like fantasy. Um, so I like science fiction. I like horror, some sort of fantasy. I like reading about philosophy. Uh, I like reading Plato or Peterson or whatever like that. I love reading comic books, although I don't read new comic books. I like comic books from when I was into them and earlier, with rare exceptions. Like Alan Moore's Promethea is fucking amazing. I read a little bit of later comics, but for me, comics from the 80s and earlier, I still. Oh, hey John Sue, how you doing? Zen Muppet says Lunatic needs new hardware. His computer's falling apart. Yeah, although the channel's made a little bit of money off of combination of Patreon and the ads. The channel doesn't make much. It makes like it'll range between $20 and $40 a month in ads. But there's also been a couple donations, and the only thing it's been spent on up till now is like the Zoom payments. Other than that, any money that's come in since last summer's been set aside. I think it's up to like $600 now, Canadian, that's in the account. So I'm setting that aside for a new computer. And I don't know exactly what I need for a new computer. I am so bad with computers. I don't know what to buy. Even this laptop, I didn't fucking buy it. I asked my brother-in-law. It's like, here's how much money I have, get me what. And then my sister had to set it up. Yeah, I'm horrible with computers. I don't know exactly what I need, but anyway, the beeps and whistles and that shit will hopefully be gone eventually. Hi, Beth. Lots of love. Zen says it's the Matrix calling. Yeah, maybe it's not a malfunction, whether it's the Matrix or aliens or angels. Maybe something else is riding along on my streams and is sending secret messages in the beeps and whistles to you guys or to specific people. Tumor V says the beeping for some reason incorporates itself well into songs. Okay. Ocean's Chainsaw says, can you recommend some good Russian philosophy books or authors? I'm interested in reading them and don't know where to start. No, either I've never read any Russian philosophers, or it's just not coming to mind now because my brain is in a weird state. Nothing's coming to mind. So either this is just a fucking brain fog, or no, I haven't. Okay, I was just about to say, so can anyone else here make any recommendations? And two more V's appears to be making some. So if anyone else has any recommendations for Occam's Chainsaw, for good philosophy books or good Russian philosophy books or authors. Undertone Man says, synchronicity, a good friend of mine had a possibly similar situation on Tuesday where telling the truth was very, very tough. And how did they deal with it? Did they stick to telling the truth, or afterwards were they like, oh, for fuck's sakes, I lied about this? So far, two more V's recommended, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. Which, those names came to mind because fucking listen to enough Peterson, you're going to hear those names a lot. But having not read them myself, I didn't say anything. Also, apparently Peterson on his website has a list of like 100 books or something that he thinks are most important. The one book I recommend most, hands down, single book, is Jerusalem by Alan Moore. I can't say enough how amazing Jerusalem is by Alan Moore. I've probably gone on about it before more than once, so I won't get into it again unless anyone's interested. I could tell you why that book is an excellent read, but I might start rambling for 10 minutes straight on it. Dell says, I find comfort in those beeps. Yeah, that's odd. A lot of people have told me. Did you find it comfort in those beeps when they first started? Because remember, I used to be able to stream in better quality. If you look during the first year at a Lunatic Live, it's better quality because I could use this little added on webcam. So the beeps and whistles started when I could no longer plug the webcam in. I can still use it like on Zoom or like on a messenger call or shit like that. But if I have the webcam plugged in and I try to go live on YouTube, it freezes it all up and shit. So the beeps and whistles started when I had to unplug that and be just going through the built-in webcam. Also, you'll notice, I think, yeah, this isn't widescreen. The older Lunatic Lives were widescreen. So what I'm wondering is, when it first started, was it annoying and you've gotten used to it and then eventually find it comforting, or did you find it a comforting sound right away? Because I've heard a few other people, like a surprising number, say that they actually have come to enjoy the beeps and whistles or find it comforting. And I've never really, or I've asked people and I forget because, yeah, my head's full of fucking fog. But at the moment, what I'm wondering about both you or anyone else who finds it comforting, did you find it comforting at first? Or is it that you got used to it and now you find it comforting? Okay, so James Carmichael says, whatever happened to the guy who had this channel originally? I don't recall his name. Yeah, that was Andrew. And now he's tarot for self-knowledge. So he doesn't do any non-tarot related stuff. So there's not like blogs about how he's doing or the other kinds of content he put up here. But he does tarot readings on Tarot for Self-Knowledge now. So if you're interested in tarot, I would recommend subscribing to his channel. Or just if you miss hearing his voice. Also, me and him have been talking about him coming back on to give an update to everyone. Well, not obviously, I haven't been talking recently, but way back before I got sick, me and him had been talking about that. It just never happened yet. So he may come back on. But right, what happened to him was he ran the channel for a while and then decided to move on. Part of it was the channel for him was about sorting himself out. You know, he'd set goals to achieve and whatnot. And he made a lot of progress on shit. And he just wanted to step away from the channel and just fully live his life away from all of this. And rather than, but like a community had built up of people who were working on sorting themselves out, and he didn't love the idea of just kind of abandoning that. So he asked me and Ryan Holsapple to take over the channel for him. And Ryan ran it with me for a year or something, over a year. And then last summer he got busy with he had a lot going on. He was working and school and blah, blah, blah. And doing all of that became too much for him. So he decided to focus on the other shit. And so the channel's just being run by me now. So Undertone Man says, to my knowledge, my friend told the truth, but she's been bothered and exhausted by it. It was a very difficult subject pertaining to the past. Well, good for her. And yeah, sometimes telling the truth is difficult, but I really agree with Peterson when he says that you just have to assume that that's the best that could have happened. And that it's an act of faith. But yeah, sometimes telling the truth does lead to difficult emotions or difficult real world results. But you just have to assume that in the long run, or for reasons you don't understand, that's the best outcome. Timor V says, for me, I think I was neutral towards them, but I connect them to the top. Oh, you're talking about the beeps. Okay, so for me, I think I was neutral towards them, but I connect them to the talks we have, which are comforting for sure. So might have something to do with that too. Zen Muppet says, well, every time I lie, I feel a part of me dying. So how much do you lie then? Because that's something Peterson shit on telling the truth, or at least don't lie, is the one thing, actually, with both him and Sam Harris, it was their stuff on lying that just made me love those guys. So it doesn't matter what else either of them say that I disagree with. They're so eloquent on the don't lie that I don't give a shit what the fuck else we disagree with. I support both those guys. I come from it. For me, it was back when I was more of a total hermit. And actually, to go right back to the beginning, for me, it was in my first cycles of mania where it went into total psychosis back before I had myself under control, when I was just fucking completely swept up by the chaos before I had any of my mindfulness or, yeah, my first 2 cycles when I went crazy, I had extreme, extended psychotic breaks. And to me, otherworld entities that I was dealing with. It's like I went through all kinds of various delusions. I kept getting the message really fucking strongly that not lying is the most important commandment. Wait, how did sorting myself out write something? Is that you, 2 more V's? Anyway, what was I saying? Right, so it originally came through in psychotic breaks how important not lying was. But then when after my first 2 cycles, when I started taking being crazy seriously. Okay, 2 more V's says it's not you. Okay, so that's Grizz then, because he's the only other one with the password. Hi, Grizz. Anyway, when I went into like real extreme isolation, I had 2 years, no phone, no internet, no car. Only ever saw my parents. Anyway, was spending 99.9% of my time alone. As I was processing shit. Like the one thing that always stuck with me coming out of the psychotic breaks was that not lying thing. I spent a ridiculous amount of time thinking about that for years afterwards. And I think you could write just thousands and thousands of pages on how important not lying is. Sam Harris makes so many great points. Jordan Peterson will make a whole set of completely different points. But it's like, for one thing, okay, I know lie detector tests aren't perfect and whatnot. There's the problems with them. But like what they point out is, you know, for all the things we argue over what are right and wrong or whatnot, if you spend a lot of time meditating, you examine yourself carefully, you realize you react. It seems built into nature to me very, very deeply in a couple different ways that lying's sinful. It's missing the mark. It does damage. One sign of it is your body reacts when you lie. Your palms sweat. And in the lie detector tests, even if they're doing the baseline tests, they ask your name and you tell the truth. You ask you where you're from, you tell the truth, and then they say, now we're going to ask you, where are you? Tell us you're on the moon, like so they can get them for a lie. So when someone says to you, I'm going to ask you where you're from, or where you are, tell me you're on the moon, in a way, that's not even lying. But even when we do that, even when we're not deceiving anyone, just speaking a lie, our bodies physically react. And it's because I was examining when you set aside fucking cultural programming and all of that shit, like what are the real true moralities? It's deep down, I think not lying is one. And the other is just every time you lie, okay, we don't know what the fuck the universe is. We don't even know what the fuck we are. Like there's so much more unknown than known. But whatever the fuck is there, it's what it is. Every time you lie, you are putting yourself at odds with a part of the universe that you're aware of. There's so little that we actually know or understand about the universe. There's so much that is just unknown and even unknown unknowns. Every time you lie, you put yourself at odds with part of that tiny fraction that you have access to. And so I think on spiritual and especially magical levels, also psychologically, as Peterson gets into, socially, our mental development, it's like lying not only fucks the world up in all the ways that, like, and look at the problems it's caused in society. We don't fucking trust anyone anymore. We don't trust the news. We don't trust corporations. The left doesn't trust the right. The right doesn't trust the left. All the fucking lying we've been doing builds up and makes it so that society's got the problems it's got now. But on the other hand, like Peterson's good at pointing out, psychologically, it fucks you up inside. It throws your internal guidance system out of whack. Or if you're into chakras or spiritual energies or whatnot, you corrupt things internally so that you fuck yourself up psychologically when you lie. Like Zen Muppet said, killing parts of yourself. But on top of that, if you believe in God or angels or whatever, if there's aspects of reality, if there's consciousness that's aware of our consciousness, you're fucking up your relationships with those as well. I'm not explaining any of this well. Okay, Zen Muppet says, I try not to lie anymore, but I'm not someone who likes confrontations. Yeah, I don't like confrontations either. So one thing that made it easier for me to stop lying was that I was cut off from the world when I first started. And the other layer is, I guess I've also only been talking about the lying to others. It's just as important, or perhaps more so important, to not lie to yourself. And for me, that took years of spending most of my time alone to even realize all the lies I'd been telling so long that they'd become a part of me, that I was believing them, or the lies deep down that I'm telling myself on the sort of almost subconscious level or emotional level, and that I've never voiced to other people, but you realize that on layers up, because deep down I can't admit this to myself. That's why when these situations come up, I tell these kinds of lies, because telling the truth would begin to lead down to exposing this part of me. So for me, it was much easier to become honest by cutting myself off from the world, dealing with it on my own, and then gradually reintroducing myself to more social interaction. But then on top of that, I had very, very little interaction. And I try to sort of only let things into my life that encourage honesty. I try to only let in people that it's easy to be honest with, or possible to. Because then the other thing is just, if you lie so that it's easier to get along with a person or some group of people, then you're stuck hanging around with people. It's like, if telling the truth causes a confrontation, one of two things happen. Either the confrontation's because they've known you for a while and they need to discover who the new you is, and they would actually be okay with the real you. It's just that it's not what they were used to, so they have to react. Or you telling the truth causes confrontation, and they're like, well, this is the way you are. I am going to bitch at you, or I don't want to be around you anymore. It's like, either way, that's just better. We often tell lies because we think people won't like us, or or won't be able to get along with us if we tell the truth about such and such. But if you're lying because you think someone won't like you, then they don't like the real you, and you will never feel like they like the real you. You feel like, yeah, they like me, but if they knew this, they would no longer like me. And the truth is that sometimes that will be the case and other times it won't, but you'll never be liked or accepted or loved for who you really are unless you show who you really are. It's enough rambling about that. Hey, Sigma. How are things going for you lately? Adele says about the beeps. Was curious about the beeps in the beginning, never minded them, found comfort when I was sure it wasn't a bomb. I got to take a restroom break. Do we wrap this up or? I'll be back in a minute. Two more V's. I was thinking I might clip this. Well, whatever it was when you wrote that, if you think it's worth clipping. Undertone Man says, what's the best thing to do to remedy a lie? Well, like the most obvious answer is the truth. Yeah, you'd almost have to give me a for instance. But yeah, the best remedy to a lie is the truth. Okay, so two more V says you have a blue name now, thanks to you, Grizz, question mark. Okay, so someone else logged in is sorting, and made one comment and then made you a moderator? It's got to have been Grizz. Occam's Chainsaw says, Martin, I envy you. And above, Martin wrote, I don't know, man. It just happened to me, I feel like. I'm not sure what you two are talking about. Did I miss something? Glad to hear you're doing well, Sigma. Hey, Pat. Good to see you. How you doing? Last full moon, you were low, right? Having a rough time? Things getting any better for you? Okay, so I'm not sure what I missed. Then Martin wrote, if you envy me for that, it seems at least that you want to have the motivation to assume that telling the truth is better in the long run. I think that's a sign that motivation is already on its way. Excellent point. And so I don't know what well, I guess you said something about telling the truth that I've either skipped or read and then forgot because I'm very fucking foggy in the head at the moment. But yeah, that is an excellent point, that observe when you're envious of someone, pay attention to that, don't just suppress it. Examine why you're envious, because that's an inner part of you talking to yourself. I could go much more into why why from my experience and to the best of my ability to understand. Um, Truth is just, I mean, nobody tells the truth. That's why Peterson put, or at least don't lie. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's, you have a subjective experience of reality. You're fucking stupid and confused. You don't interface directly with reality. You're delusional. You hallucinate a reality. And the map isn't the territory. We don't perceive things as simply as we think we do. There's a lot of fucking editing going on. Like when you look at that, like count the balls in the gorilla experiment. We don't, and every time you think about a memory, you alter it and you're really remembering the last time you remembered it. We're confused. We have biases. We have, what's it called? Not internal conflicts, but whatever the fuck, when you believe two opposite things that don't make sense together. We also have but anyway, so it's impossible to tell the real truth, full truth. But that idea of not lying, of telling the truth to the best of your ability. To me, it's just, well, think of it in science. If you were trying to be a research scientist and you had no commitment to the truth, you wouldn't get anywhere. Science works to the degree that people are honest within it. Same thing psychologically, it's the same thing spiritually. Especially, and it's like I don't push anything on anyone. I'm not on any fucking mission to teach anyone. You're all just going to do whatever the fuck you're going to do. But if someone has that motivation to understand my perspective on truth, if you believe in anything spiritual or metaphysical, And for people who don't, that's perfectly fine. I'm not trying to talk anyone into taking that bullshit seriously. Just for the kinds of people who already accept that bullshit, at least like to some degree. In my experience with, I feel this actually works either way. So whether I talk to angels or whether I'm fucking delusional and I'm talking to hallucinations, I don't think actually matters for this point. Because either way, it's better to tell the truth. My experience of angels and other non-physical entities. So whether that's a part of my own subconscious or whether it's an actual angel, I can't say enough how much fucking respect you get in that dimension when you're honest. So whether that dimension is your own subconscious or whether that dimension is like fucking angels and guides and gods, either way, that's a dimension that is real in some, like, your subconscious is very, very real to your consciousness. And but yeah, you get a lot of fucking respect from entities on the other side, whatever that other side is. And so if there really are fucking spirits and angels and gods, and like, not only among the good guys do I find you get respect. Amongst the bad guys, you get respect for being honest. And I find it affords you protections. Okay, so Occam's Chainsaw says I had asked, how does one find the motivation to tell oneself that telling the truth is better in the long run? Okay, so for me, the motivation was how seriously I take those entities. And while I'm very, very open minded like that, I'm very aware I don't know if they're a delusion or real. And it's like I do have sort of a sub personality that's very agnostic and who maintains the more grounded, like, that examines it from it being a delusion. But much, much more of me, I experience my archangel as an actual archangel outside myself. I interact with things that seem to be parts of me that manifest in the or in like the meditative or astral realm to interact with me. So there are things I do interact with that I might have pre-mindfulness and all of that shit taken as outside entities that I'm now just totally sure inside, and like, it's components of myself. But my archangel, other entities I encounter, while I'm not a certain, I do act as if, and basically I'd say I believe it's an actual archangel. But with that mindfulness, and I keep both perspectives in mind. But anyway, that's what the motivation for me was, that no matter what. And like, I am at the point. Yeah, it was the fact that I experienced knowing an archangel. It's fucking immensely powerful. Like, just reality shatteringly powerful. And it cares. Also, it seems to me that source, the relationship with source is facilitated through honesty as well. So, and again, same thing with God. I have that certain agnostic part. I'm aware I don't know. I'm aware all that shit. But yeah, I believe in God. Not because I've looked through all the available facts and find it reasonable, not because I think it's provable, but because it's something I have direct interaction with. I've experienced it. And it could all be delusions. So it's how real God and my archangel are to me was the motivation to take honesty so fucking seriously. So Patty's been high and low. Less of the swinging and back to more of the middle. Well, I'm glad things are improving for you. And the Tao of Ken says lying robs the world of truth. Yep. Lying's like a pollution. Sam Harris makes that point well when you look at the sort of, if you consider it a public economy or commodity, the information sphere, it's you pollute the information sphere. So that's one way you're damaging reality. When you lie, you break down trust, which is a valuable resource for a society, for a family, for our ability to trust one another is just such a precious resource. You break that down. And if you believe in energies and fucking spirituality, it's you spread bad energy. You pollute yourself and reality when you lie. Buy 2 more V's. God bless. Love you, brother. Oh, and Beth says Happy Mother's Day. I had forgotten it was Mother's Day. So were you wishing Adela? Anyway, yeah. To all the mothers listening, Happy Mother's Day. So what do we do? Are we going to wrap this up now, or does anyone have anything else they want to ask or talk about? I had not intended to stay on long, but I don't necessarily need to disappear. But either way, I just need to sit quiet for a minute and rest my brain. Hello, 2076. What's up? I had been doing a live stream just to let everyone know how I was doing. I was just giving an update, and then we ended up talking for a while, and you came in. Oh, 2076. Okay. You new to stumbling across this, or am I just fucking not remembering you? I don't remember 2076 hanging out. Have I sorted myself out yet? No, it's an endless project. Oh, we've spoken another time? Different name, or had I just forgotten? I was just giving an update. Might have been Macchione's back then. Okay. Yeah, I had just given an update on how I'm doing. And if you haven't been around in a while, I had COVID and have been I'd been cut off and not answering messages or anything. I gave an update on that. I guess the one good thing I could give an update on. Okay, you've only been by once or twice. So to put something positive into the last shitty update, now that it's warmer and I've been well enough at the same time to go hang out outside, the wildlife's coming back out, and it's strange how, to me, how good a day is depends a lot on how much sunshine, like how nice it is, whether I can go out, and what animals I see. It feels like a productive day when I feed the chipmunk and the groundhog. But there's a new groundhog around. So the one that's in the couple videos that were put out that were filmed last summer, that groundhog is Gwen. She'd been around the past 2 summers, and me and her became good friends last summer. But she'd been living under the front porch for a while, but a neighbor's dog came and like dug into her den and went after her, and she had babies. So she took off, and I didn't see I think once I saw one of the young with her up near the yard, but I didn't after she moved out, she would come up and hang out sometimes. But it seems she took her young way off into the backfield. This year, at first, I thought I saw Gwen moving back in under the porch. The one area her one hole was all washed out from spring thaw, but I hadn't looked closely at her going in and out. But then when I was hanging outside, I realized it's not Gwen that moved in under there. It's one of her kids. Because it's smaller, and it's got to be one of her kids, because the second time that I was out there, I saw it once come out of the hole and like go off into the backyard, and realized it was like a smaller groundhog. It's just a yearling. That it's not Gwen under there. But the second time I was like sitting out there, it came out and came right over to me. So it's not a new groundhog I've never met before. It's got to be one of Gwen's kids. So I've named it Dee Dee. I'm not sure if it's a boy or a girl. I don't know how to sex groundhog, with the exception of I knew Gwen was female when she had her pups, or whatever you call baby groundhogs. But so anyway, Dee Dee moved into his mom's old place, or her mom's old place, and it's just seemed to have been tame right. Well, a little more skittish, not as comfortable with me as Gwen was, but came right over. Like Dee Dee will hang out and eat out of my hands, so that's cool. Also, it was neat to see the groundhog dragged like a short piece of wood, like a piece of like split wood for the fire, dragged it and placed it near the hole, and like rebuilt the part that had washed out. But so anyway, yeah, there's New groundhog moved back in under the front porch and is around all the time, so that's cool. None of the female chipmunks are back. It seems to me, I don't know why, but the first chipmunks to come around are males. Like last year, Romeo showed up first in the spring and for a while was the dominant, like owned the yard if other males came around. So Romeo's back this year and just remembered me right away from last year. I haven't seen any females yet that I could tell. Like I've seen a few chipmunks at a distance going across a fence or something that didn't come close. But so far it's just Romeo and a couple other males, but he really chases them off, except Frankie manages to get in the yard. So they've been around, but I haven't seen any of the females yet. If it goes like it did last year, after the females show up, the males will take off and then the females will hang out in the yard for the rest of the summer. But the one cool thing, I made a new friend yesterday that I had not befriended one of its species before. Red squirrels are really fucking uppity. They are not a friendly rodent. Red squirrels like to yell at people from trees and are very like, fuck off, get away. So the red squirrels have been around, and last year they would occasionally come within 5 feet. Like they'd run up and grab a peanut and run off. But for most of the time, the red squirrels were not eating any of the bird seed at all, like whether I was out there or not. Then all of a sudden they seemed to like the peanuts. And so they would come around occasionally, but also not just with people. Red squirrels bully chipmunks and but anyway, I'd occasionally see some of them last year and they'd fight with the chipmunks and they'd come so close to me, but were definitely not friendly. But this year there was a red chipmunk that before I was hand feeding, because when I was sick, I wasn't hand feeding any of them. There was one that came over like right within a foot of me and hung out for a minute until it started fighting with Romeo. But yesterday, the red chipmunk came right over and hung out for a while and ate out of my hand. So that was cool. That felt like a good day. So of all the time that I have been completely cut off from the world, that's been the best, is sitting outside, watching the birds. And I'm getting more and more popular with the rodents, but I really enjoy that. Undertone Man says nature is the best resort, as long as you don't get eaten. I'm sure I'll get eaten plenty by black flies and mosquitoes, but so far the rodents are nice and gentle. Any rodent, the first time I hand feed them, like groundhogs, chipmunks, and it was the same thing with the red squirrel. They always bite my finger once, like gently, and then it's just once. It's weird. Every single one seems to need, well, I don't know what it is. The first time they're eating out of my hand as they like are digging through the seed and whatnot, they'll always grab onto like the fingertip or the edge or, you know, like sort of the bumps with their teeth, squeeze a bit, like not enough that it hurts at all, let go, and then occasionally one of them will do it again, like make a bit of a mistake of biting a little too deep, but almost never. But almost all of them, if not all of them, do that the first time. Martin says, how do you deal with mosquitoes? I feed them. I know I've talked about it before, but I guess you didn't hear. So years back, I, as part of like a spiritual and magical shit, I started feeding mosquitoes as a sort of meditative training. So there were magical elements to it about, um, being a part of the food chain, giving back, uh, like, and also like meditating on and doing rituals to fill myself with love and light and positive energy for the mosquitoes, like to charge my blood magically. And it was an offering to, like, when you contemplate the mosquitoes and are going to be eaten by, the frogs and the fish and the birds that are going to eat them. And so you concentrate in the energy, not just going into the mosquitoes population, but into everything else, feeding back into nature, connecting to the spirit of nature here. So there was all that element to it. Another element to it was more psychological. It was fucking anyone who goes to a therapist, I'm sure has heard the whole, well, you can't control what other people do. You can only control your reaction to it. And then on deeper levels and mysticism and whatnot, you kind of get that message as well. It's like spiritual and mystical shit. The whole, everyone's got free will. For you, it's about how you respond to it. And so I thought a good way, because I like to mix my magic with the psychological, have it work in both ways. Um, so that the sort of more agnostic subpersonality doesn't mind so much all the focus on energy and magic, because there's also this psychological thing going of learning to discipline yourself to sit. So anyway, what I would do is I'd go into the woods, like naked, walk around to like stir up mosquitoes. Then I would sit down and meditate for hours. So, well, I built up, but at some points I'd be out there for a couple hours where you have just dozens and dozens of them all over you. At first, the struggle was to sit still and to hold, and actually, no, before holding loving attention. The idea was to learn to control myself when there's something irritating happening to me, to control my own inner state, and also to be loving to the thing that is causing pain or irritation. At first, my reaction to a whole bunch of mosquitoes biting me was to think like fuck you towards the mosquitoes, to want to kill them, to be upset with them. That was like my natural reaction to that at first. So step one was to stop that shit and try to like remove the negativity towards them and to learn to just sit still. Also, it's amazing how much your body will reflexively go to swat them. But then moving from there, then it's to start focusing positively on them, to be loving the mosquitoes. Like they're not trying to cause itching, they're trying to continue their species, which is an important part of the food chain. Even the thought of the more standard model, when a mosquito bites you and you're like, fuck you, and you slap it, is also like as if the mosquito's trying to steal your blood. Like when I was out there doing that and meditating and examining my reactions and what are my resistances to being loving towards the mosquitoes, I realized I had absorbed the framework of the mosquitoes trying to steal my blood. And that I realized that's wrong. The mosquito's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Our blood, like it's easy for us to look at the fruit and the fish, whatever it is we eat is there for us to eat. Our blood is there for the mosquitoes. That's the only, that's the way they're designed. Their job is to gather our blood the same way that the bees are supposed to gather nectar and pollen. They're not stealing that from the flower. That's part of what makes this whole fucking thing work. And so everything that we eat down at the base of the food chain are things that are feeding off these mosquitoes. So they're taking that tiny bit of blood that they're supposed to take. They're going out and reproducing and contributing to the functioning of this entire system. And then, from that point on, then I could get to where I could actually meditate on channeling energies, opening chakras, putting energy in. I could focus on doing, because once you get past all those annoyances and that fight with all that, you can reach a loving state. And obviously then you're also in total acceptance of the itching. Like you're not fighting it at all. Then you can focus on other things. So there's one summer in particular where the whole summer I was doing that on a regular basis. And I found since then, I don't swat mosquitoes or black flies very often. There have been times where, I was working outside and I was having a rough time, been in a rough state, and just was like, no, I don't want to be fucking eaten. I would even say to the mosquitoes, I'm not doing my usual free-for-all. I'm going to kill whoever. Although even the kill wasn't an angry thing. It was, death's not bad. If I do kill a mosquito, I send it like with a blessing. It's, all right, you're tired of being a mosquito? Cool. Here, go off into another dimension. But anytime I do find that I need to swat mosquitoes, I began taking that as a sign that like I need to do some fucking work. Like, what the fuck? Like, obviously I'm not in a good state. It's like, who the fuck are you that you can't feed a couple mosquitoes right now? It's like, oh, I'm in too bad a mood. I don't want to handle itching. So for me, if I need to be killing mosquitoes, it's a sign I need to do some self-work. So, fuck yeah, that was a long-ass answer of how do I deal with mosquitoes is mostly I just feed them. Or even there's times when, say I've been outside for a while and I'm ready to get up and go in. Because often like the mosquitoes will come out at sunset. So sometimes if I've been out for hours and just as I'm getting ready to go in because the sun's setting, a whole bunch of mosquitoes land on my arm. Sometimes I'll even think, oh, fuck it. All right, I'll have another smoke. I'll let these mosquitoes finish eating. Then I'll go inside. Hi, Seer Guru. Nice to have you here. Adela says, oh, I still have the baby dove. It's 4 weeks now. Named him Admiral Bird, trying not to get attached, but it's too late. Yeah, but when you release it, you have another bird around that knows you. Like the one last year that after you released came back and ate out of your hand. So that's nice, isn't it? Knowing you have some friends out there among the wildlife. And Martin says, I like this answer, Merc. Do you find it helps you being less annoyed by them throughout the summer because of it? Yes, for one thing, after. And fuck, back then when I was doing that intensive, like going and searching out an area where there's lots of them, there'd be just dozens of them all over me. There were times where someone comes over later that day, they take one look at me and would say, what is wrong with you? Because I would just be covered. It's just bites all next to each other, all over, everywhere. It's like bites on bites, all these swollen. Compared to that, the annoyance of a mosquito biting you, yeah, it's less annoying. Also, it's less annoying when you learn to accept it. Resistance to suffering makes suffering so much worse. But then also, not only do I find it doesn't bother me as much to be bitten by mosquitoes now, I found it also did help exactly in that situation that, psychiatrists telling you can't control other people, you can only control yourself. I've had times since doing that over that summer where I was dealing with people who were being very, very difficult, who were, when someone's upset and they're lashing out at you, and I would find myself, having those natural reactions to someone behaving that way. And then I would consciously remind myself, I would say, no, this is like the mosquitoes. Remember, with the mosquitoes, you can have something that's actively irritating you and you can be loving towards that thing. And I found after like the reminder to do that, like the thought of that, I would remind myself, take a couple deep breaths, keep dealing with the person. And I found it worked in that situation as well. I don't use that as often as I used to. I think maybe just because I don't need to as often, like use the mosquito thing to remind myself. But for a while, I used that quite a lot. So I would just think back to fuck, if you can be covered in mosquitoes and be okay, you can deal with this irritating person and still have a loving attitude towards them. You don't need to swat them. You can let them finish and go away on their own. So I did find it helped with that. Seer Guru says, Mother's Day, one child ashes, one child bipolar, one child autistic, and one learning disabled and intellectually disabled. 4 kids. That sounds rough. How old are your kids? Well, happy Mother's Day. Hi, Daniel. How you doing? Martin says, some say the Sapmi people of Norway, Sweden, Finland go out in the forest when spring comes and get naked and let the mosquitoes feed. Interesting. I'd never heard of anyone else doing that. Also, that whole thing I talked about, I didn't hear of that anywhere. That was like a discipline that I came up with, like between me and my archangel. So that was at a point where I wasn't doing research on magic or spirit, like that kind of shit at all during that phase, that summer. It was a year of studying under my invisible teachers that discipline came up. Glad to hear you're doing okay, Daniel. And you say, I will sort myself out more. Good for you. I don't, like, I suppose I am in one way very much sorting myself out over the past couple months, but it doesn't, in another way, I'm not. Like, it's the exact opposite of a Petersonian sorting myself out. I am not aiming. I'm not envisioning who I could become. I am not trying one little step at a time. Like, I'm much more doing a Taoist kind of a letting go and emptying and just escape from the world. But I am doing a lot of meditating and shadow work and shit like that. But it's all internal stuff. It's not outside stuff. not exercising. It's not. Anyway. And Martin says, I honestly just saw it in a meme and it stuck with me. I thought that I might try that approach in the future. Well, if you're ever going to, I recommend the practice I developed, I found very rewarding in every sense. Like, it worked psychologically. I think it has helped me get to the place where I could be more zen with like my illness and with other sufferings. Like, so I think it's helped me psychologically. It's helped me socially in that I could deal like that, learning to control yourself while letting the outside blah blah, that shit. But also on the magical level, I feel like it really worked as well. Because for me, part of it was to get to know the spirit of the land here, but also specifically the animals. So I was trying to develop a connection magically to the energies of nature here. And since then, I do feel like I have a relationship with nature here. And it came first as like a feeling over that summer that I was feeding the mosquitoes. Because it was like the first summer I was in this house. Or the second, anyway. I developed this feeling of having a good relationship with nature. And since then, that has actually manifested. It was like the summer after that I dug this little pond and without like trying to, made friends with a bunch of frogs. In particular, made friends with this one frog, Merlin, that would come when I called it and it would participate in magic rituals with me at the pond. It was like amazing, the relationship I had with these frogs for 1 or 2 summers. Then, like last summer, I moved from hanging out back at that area to hanging out front, and I started feeding the birds. And I actually, with no other intent, nothing other than setting an intention to befriend the chipmunks, I had that desire. It's like just sitting out there and throwing out some seeds. Since last summer, have made friends with a bunch of chipmunks, 2 groundhogs now, and as of yesterday, a red squirrel. So it's like, I feel like the magic really manifested. The animals are nicer to me since then, like, and increasingly so. So if you're going to do that practice, adding prayer to it, of making it an offering and trying to send good energy out. And it's like, I wasn't doing magic. Like, I don't do magic to try to get stuff. To me, magic's about developing relationships more than it's about like what most people think of as magic. And so I wasn't making like those blood offerings asking for things. I was doing it to contribute. It was like a gift, and it was to develop, the thought was just to develop a relationship with. And then, I've done other kinds of rituals to develop relationships with angels or with source or blah, blah, blah. But for me, it seemed to work on every level. Daniel says you have a bunch of nice crickets around. And I have to go more into the internal. The fact that it's spring helps me. Yeah, I'm very grateful it's spring. It was a rough winter for me. Undertone Man says, do you think one could develop similar effects by fasting? I suppose there may need to be an external irritant. Yeah, there's tons of great reasons to fast. But if if you're aiming for the goal of learning to control your internal reaction to outside difficulties, if you're learning to try to be present and non-judgmental of your own pain and suffering, especially when caused by someone else, so that so that you can be loving, so that you can be forgiving of people who are even doing things wrong. I mean, fasting and meditating on forgiveness, doing prayers about becoming more like you could meditate and fast to call in energies of being more that, but there's a certain skill developed when you do when you when you do the actual process, when you have something fucking irritating you and you're meditating on loving during that. So it won't be the same. Like, you can work towards similar things, but there's something particular about having something irritating you and spending hours and hours and hours um, meditating on being loving, on controlling your internal state. Also, there's plenty of weird shit that can happen as well. Like, there were times when I could meditate to where I altered the sensation. Instead of it being itching, there would be energy, felt like energy flowing through the body. And I could meditate into states where I wasn't feeling the itching at all. I could kind of leave my body, sort of, not where I was out of body, but I could disconnect from physical sensation and be entirely in my head. But I didn't do that often. Like, sometimes there was the desire to alter the feeling so it was less irritable, or just to pull right in away from it, where you're not thinking about the mosquitoes, you're not feeling the itch. But that's running away from the point of what I was doing. Like, to me, part of it was on both levels. Like, psychologically, it doesn't work if you just run away from it. You can't do that when dealing with a difficult person. You can't just go into your head and disappear from the room. So I had to be feeling the irritant and controlling my emotional state, not escaping the irritant. But it was the same thing with the sacrifice level of, like trying to give like a sacrifice. If I made it so I wasn't feeling the pain, that takes away from the amount of energy that's going into it in a way that I don't feel able to continue explaining. Martin says, well, it's interesting that you found this approach to the mosquitoes that supposedly are indigenous people. They used to live in harmony with the nature, and they have the shaman also found might be a natural approach to the issue. Yes, I would not be surprised in the slightest to find like shaman among like more traditional, like still with their older traditions, having that. It seems like it doesn't surprise me. And Daniel says, I love ducks and geese. I like to watch them and feed them. Yeah, I mean, I'm never feeding ducks and geese here, but I like ducks and geese as well. Contemplation is therapeutic. Yeah, well, it can be, and contemplation can also be self-destructive. What you and I are thinking of is, but you can also spend too much time alone thinking if you don't know how to think. especially if you don't understand mindfulness. If you don't know how to separate yourself from thoughts and emotions and examine them from a distance, if you're hypnotized by your ego, going and sitting alone and thinking about things for a few hours, you can dig yourself deeper into a paranoia, into your own delusion, into, you know, wrap yourself up more deeply in some ideology. So there's a right and, well, maybe not right and wrong, but there's a healing and a self-destructive way to contemplate. All right, my brain's fucking worn the fuck out. I don't think I can keep talking. Yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up now. And I have no idea when I'll be checking messages again, but it's fine. People can write. I will get back to checking messages at some point. So feel free to write in. And I really don't know. It could be very soon, like in a day or two, or it could still be weeks. I'm not in a place of predicting. So I don't know. Whatever happens, happens. And we'll leave it at that. God bless. Lunatic love to all.